Power Tracks presents the most powerful sport on earth, the Renegades TNT Monster Truck Challenge. Power Tracks is brought to you by the heartbeat of America, today's Chevy truck.
Hi, everybody. I'm Richard Leake, along with Army Armstrong, and we are in the bluegrass state of Kentucky at the brand new Louisville Motor Speedway for the Renegades TNT Monster Truck Challenge. And for the first time in the history of this division, they're going to be running a figure-8 track, and that means a lot, Army.
A lot of action, not only a figure-8, Richard, side-by-side figure-8 racing.
And two trucks we've got to keep our eye on tonight. Number 1, KRUNCH, and number 2, Stomper.
Stomper stepped up. The word's out. He has the most powerful engine in the sport. KRUNCH, he's thrashing. He had a violent accident last week in Colorado and was trying to come back in the program.
A total of 11 trucks tonight. That includes the national points leader. BIGFOOT will be here, and we're going to be back with all the action from the new Louisville Motor Speedway in Louisville, Kentucky in just a moment. For this Renegades TNT Monster Truck Challenge, the first time in the history of the division, they've run a figure-8 track, and in a moment, Army Armstrong will explain that. Meanwhile, let's look at the pairings. USA 1 won't run until the quarterfinal round. He got a bye because he was the top qualifier. Then it'll be Bennett Clark and Clydesdale against Dale Harris and Casper. Follow that up with Awesome Kong and Steve Dane going up against John Moore in No Problem. Then, just showing off, and Paul Hoffaker up against Renegade 1 and Warren Hudson. Then we've got Stomper 1 with Mike Witt against LEADFOOT and Ron Dennis. And then BIGFOOT with Rich Hoosier against KRUNCH and Scott Stevens. Let's go trackside now with Army Armstrong.
The big question tonight, the new course they're running, it's actually set up like a figure-8. It's about twice the distance of the normal track they run, plus there are 280-degree turns that they have to make, one to the left and one to the right. The trucks, we're trying to notice something that's working and not working on the vehicles. Basically, the short wheelbase trucks and the long wheelbase trucks seem to be at a disadvantage. The truck, basically with the wheelbase is kind of in the middle, seems to be having an advantage. We're keeping an eye on BIGFOOT, just showing off. USA 1 Chevrolet, they're all sitting with the mid-type wheelbase setup, and it seems to be the hot combination. It goes good over the jumps. It also works in the turns. Qualifying sessions are over. The drivers know what they're going to have to do. The length of the track will be the important part of the competition. Stay tuned for all the action. We're going back upstairs.
Well, as you can see, we've got a capacity crowd in Louisville, Kentucky as darkness has arrived, and we're ready for round 1 competition. It's going to be Clydesdale taking on Casper.
Clydesdale will be the Chevrolet. He'll be in the first half of the race on the outside portion of the track. The second half of the race, he'll be able to go the inside. Right now, the Pearl, Mississippi Toyota is trying to hold him on his hip to the high side of the track.
And, of course, Bennett Clark is out of Canton, Georgia. He's driving the Clydesdale machine against Dale Harris from Pearl, Mississippi, who is in Casper.
Clark goes the high side now, but he's going to take a shot. The first jump of the evening. The way the cars are lined up might be giving a fella some problems. They take a shot. He comes off with a little bit of a bounce. Now goes into that second corner, Richard, for the first finish of the evening.
And it's going to be an easy win for Clydesdale and Bennett Clark out of Canton, Georgia. A resounding win for him in round number 1. And you can see him bringing the Clydesdale machine on around. Meanwhile, Casper just now approaching the final jump area there. Casper with Dale Harris definitely had some problems early in the race. Let's go down with Army Armstrong and your winner right now.
Bennett, what did it feel like out there to you?
Well, it was awful rough. The cars turned off different ways. It makes a lot of trouble driving across. Get a lot of bounces that you usually don't get.
And you're talking about the cars turning a lot of different ways. You're talking about the cars you're going over in the middle. They're setting at different angles.
There's a lot of different angles. Some of them setting crossways. Some of them you're going with. There's hard places, soft places in them. Just made it harder.
All right, so we are ready to continue on with our first round of competition. It's going to be Awesome Kong up against No Problem.
Steve Dane out of Texas. Both Ford vehicles takes a shot. Dane working the inside to perfection. Now, recently, Richard, he has flipped this truck. Unable to get Ford sheet metal back on it against John Moore. He had to go with what sheet metal he could have, and you can see it kind of looks like a swamp buggy.
And it is he at the first jump with a big lead right now, Steve Dane and Awesome Kong. Meanwhile, bringing up the rear, No Problem, and John Moore looks like he's got some problems.
No Moore, I tell you what, he's very conservative on his equipment. He's going to try to stay alive any way he can. Meanwhile, Dane seems to slow down a little bit, Richard, as he goes into the second turn.
Steve Dane and Awesome Kong coming off turn number 2, headed for the final jump to the finish line. unless he's got a big problem here, he's going to bring it across first and move on into quarterfinal action. As your winner, Steve Dane and Awesome Kong, as you see John Moore with no problem conserving his equipment for a possible later run in this competition. And we're ready now to move on to our next round of competitors. Just showing off, Paul Huffaker out of Texas against the Renegade 1 machine, Warren Hudson out of Arkansas.
Huffaker puts a gate job on that inside lane, holding the Renegade out. Huffaker looking awfully strong. He's already around, getting ready to approach the first jump, Richard.
And just showing off with a whopper of a lead already. He goes up, and he's going over this first set of jumps. Meanwhile, Renegade 1 laying way back as he is just now making his way over the jump.
Huffaker looks good. The engine's putting out a good flame pattern. The Renegade truck seems to be having a little bit of problem. We noticed some sparks starting to come out from beneath the vehicle.
There they are right there. Sparks coming out from the Renegade 1 machine. What might that indicate?
Front drive shaft looks like it may have gone away. He's in two-wheel drive only now.
That means an easy win, it looks like, for just showing off Paul Huffaker out of Texas. Boy, he's a veteran on this circuit as he makes it easily over the final jump, heads to the finish line where Army is going to join him to find out how his ride went.
Paul Huffaker out of Houston, Texas, advances into the next round. Now, before the eliminations, we were talking to you during time trials. You were worried about the distance of the track. Now that you've made a run on it, what does it feel like to you?
I'm still worried about the distance on the track. The way I'm geared, I can't run but about 38 miles per hour, and I was right there at my maximum speed during qualifying and again during this run. Some trucks are running so much faster. I just have to see. Maybe they'll break.
Stomper and Bigfoot still ahead from Louisville, Kentucky.
A great night of racing Thursday at 10 Eastern, live on
against Stomper 1 and Mike Witt, and problems right at the start-finish line for Ron Dennis and Leadfoot.
All the way from Arizona. A tough break, Richard. He wasn't able to even get into the first turn. Meanwhile, Witt sashaying around the track with a brand-new engine combination. A lot of people are watching this truck this evening to see if the big horsepower is the way to go in these monster trucks.
Well, the fans not only watching the horsepower, but they're also watching Mike Witt. He's a local favorite. Mike from just down the road in Mount Washington, as you see him come around turn 2, headed for the final jumps, and he's up and over them. He'll move into the quarterfinal round competition. And meanwhile, still back at the start-finish line is Ron Dennis.
Ron Dennis arrived late at the track, Richard, all the way from Arizona. Has been thrashing all evening long to get this vehicle going. The other crews were helping him, just not to be his day.
Well, tough luck for Ron Dennis as his night appears to be over, but good luck for Mike Witt from Mount Washington, Kentucky, and Stomper 1. And earlier today, Army spent some time with Mike Witt.
Now, Mike, you've made some radical changes this week.
Army, we went from a 482 cubic inch steel block Chevrolet to a 572 aluminum block Rodak motor with a 1471 blower to up our horsepower to about 1,750 horse. And we hope that this will give us enough power to come off the starting line, because we were the only monster truck that's running a clutch, and it just slips coming off the line a little bit. So we're trying to build the horsepower up, come off the starting line a lot faster, and we can catch them on top end. We've got plenty of power to do that.
We've been keeping an eye on your crew all afternoon long, Mike, as we noticed they've been adding weight to the centrifugal clutch in order to get a better start or launch off the starting line. Do you think that's going to help you a little bit later?
And we tried it taking off the way we're going to take off tonight, and it was still a little bit slow, so we're going to add a few more weights to the clutch, and we hope it'll work tonight.
So Mike Witt's coming out with basically twice the horsepower as the average monster truck, trying to get up on these Renegade National Points chase.
We're in our final round of competition for round number 1. You think of monster trucks, you think of Bigfoot. He is up against King Crunch.
King Crunch out of Texas has been struggling all week long. He flipped the truck last week. He's trying to pull it back in. He has one chance. That's to keep Hoosier on the outside. But Rich Hoosier looks like he's going to be coming around. Has tremendous amount of ground speed, Richard. Hoosier looks to be, look at the mile-an-hour difference between a Ford and a Chevrolet.
Whoa, Rich Hoosier up and over and builds a whopping lead now on King Crunch and Scott Stevens. As a matter of fact, King Crunch has pretty well shut things down going into turn 2, but Rich Hoosier is on a roll there in Bigfoot as he comes up over the final set of cars to jump. It's going to be an easy win for Rich Hoosier and Bigfoot. And there you see a flash fire from underneath Bigfoot. Just a flash fire there from underneath the hood of Bigfoot, and that's King Crunch. He is going to try to finish this race. King Crunch and Scott Stevens, the loser. Wait a minute, Bigfoot is on fire again. Bigfoot is flaming underneath the motor. Army Armstrong running down to yell up at Rich Hoosier. Hoosier jumps out of the cab, is going to run around to find out what the problem is. The fire appears to be out. No, it's still flaming. Safety officials on the scene with Rich Hoosier. Well, this might put a damper on his competition later. Let's go down to Army.
Believe me, you put a lot of fear in a lot of people here. Tremendous fire in the vehicle right as you ran across the finish line, Rich.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what happened. It was running real good until I got to the last time over the cars, and all of a sudden a bunch of smoke started coming up into the cab. I really wasn't sure exactly what it was. It could have been just a little oil in the header. And when we come around here, it was on fire, so we think maybe the transmission got a little hot and put some oil out on the header.
You're going to be able to come back in the next round.
Yeah, we're going to pull over the pits, check everything out, make sure it's all okay.
Well, hopefully things will be all right for Bigfoot. There you see Scott Stevens and King Crunch. It's been a bad day for him. He heads back to the pits. As a matter of fact, it's been a bad last week or so as he crashed King Crunch about a week or so ago, and Army Armstrong spoke with him earlier about it.
It was just a lot more power than I was used to, and I was coming off the straightaway, and I was bouncing really hard, and I kind of looked over, and Stomper was fixing to drive by me. And as light as my truck is and as big as motors I got, I can usually pull away, so I just leaned on it real hard. And that was about the end of it. It jumped up and nosed real hard in the air. And it was up in the air long enough, I shut the alcohol off and turned the motor off before it ever hit because I knew it was going to land right on its nose. At first, we kind of thought the truck was really hurt too bad to even race, but got up to Louisville Tuesday morning and went to Louisville Frame Shop, and he said that he could change, straighten the frame back up. The front corner was bent down about 4 inches. And we're the only guy running an aluminum frame, so we had never bent one that bad, so we didn't know what to do. And Gene over there got us really straight, so we had that problem taken care of. But the new rules, we got to have a body, and here it was Wednesday afternoon, and we had no idea where we could get a body. And I called Creative Glass down in Nashville, and he just happened to have prototype 88 skins that they're making for race trucks. So he brought this one up to me Thursday morning. And we put it on Thursday night and all night last night, and we just finished about an hour ago. And it's still about 10 hours from being finished body-wise, but at least we got a body on there.
And we are now ready for quarterfinal round competition. It's going to be your fastest qualifier, USA 1 against Casper, which was defeated earlier in competition, Army.
Casper was defeated, but he comes back by virtue of being the second quick losing time. USA 1 immediately jumps out, Richard. A strong shot on the outside lane, and Casper looks to be having problems. He goes to the infield, Richard.
That's Dale Harris. Casper getting out of shape there in turn number 1. Meanwhile, Rod Litzow and USA 1 is approaching the first set of cars.
Might be to his advantage. He backpedaled. He's a little bit out of shape. This could really be to his advantage as Casper went to the infield. Litzow has a little bit of reprieve here. He can make a little mistake and still advance into the next round.
Now, you see the flag on the back of the USA 1 machine. What is that?
That's a True Value Hardware Master Mechanic plus a Chevrolet flag, Richard.
All right, of course, Chevrolet, a fine sponsor of TNT also. As you see, Rod Litzow bringing it over the final jump. Dale Harris, who would he be talking to there?
Harris going back to check with the starting line judge to make sure it was a legal start, Richard.
Well, Rod Litzow, your winner, he moves on into the semifinal round of competition. Dale Harris shakes his head. He walks off. The driver of Casper calling it a night. We're ready for more quarterfinal round competition. Clydesdale against Awesome Kong.
Awesome Kong on the inside gets a good start. Clydesdale's going to really leg it to pull from the outside of the track. Awesome Kong right where he wants to be. On this part of the track, he works the bottom side. He can finish going to the outside of the track. Tremendous ground speed as he approaches the cars for the first jump, Richard.
Steve Dane out of Texas, and Awesome Kong takes it up and over easily. Meanwhile, Bennett Clark and Clydesdale just getting across them. It's a nice lead right now for Steve Dane as he heads around turn 2, headed for the final car jump.
Dane exactly where he wants to be, working the high side of the track for the second half, approaches the cars for the finish line jump. It looks like he's going to advance to the next round.
He certainly will. That is Steve Dane from Texas. Awesome Kong, the winner here. He'll move into the semifinals. And meanwhile, Bennett and Clydesdale coming across, but they're going to head to the pits and call it a night. But we're not going to call it a night yet. Still to come, Stomper 1 and Bigfoot when we come back to Louisville, Kentucky. Quarter-final round competition continues. We got a barn burner straight ahead, just showing off with Paul Huffaker. Will be taking on the fan favorite, local hero Mike Witt, out of Mount Washington, Kentucky, and Stomper 1. And what is that they're putting behind the wheels now, Army?
They had some oil dry. Something went astray in the steering on the Clydesdale truck, so the track crew putting down some oil dry.
All right, we are ready to go. They're off and running, just showing off against Stomper.
Huffaker gets a hole shot, puts a local boy in a bad spot. Witt said earlier he has the horsepower to come back on the second half of the track. He's going to have to do it. The Ford jumps on the inside lane. The Chevrolet's got to really dial the horsepower in now. It looks like he's coming on him, Richard.
Paul Huffaker with the lead, but here comes Mike Witt. Mike Witt with a tremendous surge of power goes around Huffaker.
Huffaker has to go to the high side. Witt got to be granted from ear to ear. The horsepower seems to be working. He's hanging outside the Stomper Chevrolet.
All right, it's going to be a race to the finish now as Mike Witt and Stomper 1 heads for the final set of cars. He is up and over. Mike Witt is going to win it over Paul Huffaker, and just showing off, Mike Witt and Stomper 1 is your winner. A tremendous race in Louisville, Kentucky. Let's go trackside with Army.
Mike, a super run between you and Paul Huffaker out of Houston, Texas.
Thank you, Army. It was a real rough one.
We noticed when you came across the last jump, there was something that looked like bounced around. Do you think you had any damage on the run?
Well, I just noticed looking at the truck when I jumped out of it that the front drive shaft was broken universal joint. So depending on if I can get it fixed or not, depends on how I have to run in the final round, because with front drive shaft, a couple trucks have flipped before, so you can push it a little harder with the front drive shaft, so we'll wait and see.
It's kind of a unique part of the sport he brings out. You've got to have the front wheels to keep pulling the front of the truck down once they land.
That sets up our final race and quarterfinal round competition. BIGFOOT, a winner in the first round, against no problem, a loser in the first round.
BIGFOOT, one of the Mountain Motors vehicles. Rich Hoosier doing a driving known as a Charger. On the inside, Moore, who advances by virtue of having quick round as a loser in the first round of eliminations. He's running him an awfully good race. Hoosier's got his hand full with no problem.
Yeah, looks like no problem is having no problems, or is he? Wait a minute. No problem, and John Moore is backing off the throttle.
Moore backed off the throttle. Hoosier grabbed a handful, got a lot of air, and it looks like some blue smoke starting to come out from underneath BIGFOOT, Richard.
All right, BIGFOOT, of course, had a fire earlier in his first round of competition. Maybe a little bit of problem there. We'll have to find out. But Rich Hoosier is going to advance to the semifinal round as he is up and over the final set of cars. Rick Hoosier, your winner in BIGFOOT. But is there a problem with that machine? We're going to have to go down and talk to Rich about that. Meanwhile, it's no problem, and John Moore easing across the final set of cars. Rich Hoosier and BIGFOOT, your winner. Let's go to Army.
I'm going a lot faster on that far side over there, causing all the oil and the oil pan to get over on that side of the motor, which is coming out the breather on that side and splashing all over. We shoved the rag down in there so it still breathes, had to soak up some of the oil, but it seems like it's a little bit more still coming out.
I'll tell you what, the Battle of the Monster Truck's definitely living up to its name tonight, Rich.
Yeah, it's getting tough out here tonight. It's a long track, gives you a lot of time to catch up, and a lot of time for problems, too.
All right, so BIGFOOT will take on this vehicle, the Stomper 1 machine of Mike Witt. There's a lot of wrenching going on. Let's go down to Army Armstrong.
Gail Medford, one of the team drivers on the Stomper. Gail, what exactly is going on behind us with the vehicle?
Right now we've got our front U-joint out of it. We do have a U-joint, so we'll get it all back together and we'll be back.
So you will be back in action chasing the Ford?
We'll be back in action.
So now the stage is set for the semifinals. USA 1 against Awesome Kong.
USA 1 quick qualifier goes to the high side. I don't know. We might have a Donnybrook here. Awesome Kong holding him on his hip. He's pushed him to the high side of the track. Steve Dane lined up perfect. He's right where he wants to be, Richard.
Steve Dane out of Texas may be pulling off a big upset as he is up and over. Meanwhile, Rod Litzow in USA 1 is close on his heels.
A lot of RPM when he came off the jumps on the Chevrolet. He may have some type of transmission problem as blue smoke starting to appear from beneath the vehicle.
Meanwhile, watch Awesome Kong, Steve Dane out of Texas, trying to upset your top qualifier tonight, and it looks like he's going to do it now. USA 1 is out of it as Steve Dane and Awesome Kong goes for the win. He moves into the finals. This is a major upset, Army.
Definitely an upset as a quick qualifier of the evening. Looks to be having some type of transmission problems. The owner going over to check on the truck. Rod Litzow doing a superb job of driving it, but USA 1 will have to wait for another day to go to the winner's circle.
Well, just because you qualify first doesn't mean you'll win it all, as we just found out. But now we're ready for the other semifinal. Bigfoot and Stomper 1.
Chevrolet versus Ford. This one alone is worth the price of admission as Stomper trying to hold off Rich Hoosier. Mike Witt on the inside, Hoosier on the outside, side by side as they approach the first turn. It's going to be a war. Bigfoot starts to come on him.
Up, both of them. Look out for Mike Witt. He has flipped it. Mike Witt has flipped Stomper 1 and a Chevrolet. The safety people running over right now to him. Smoke coming from the machine. Army Armstrong has run down there now to check on his condition. Mike Witt and Stomper 1 probably could have won this race in that Chevrolet. He is out of it now. He is out of the car. Look on the replay how high he went up. Bounced down right onto the nose. Flipped over on the driver's side. Mike Witt is all right, unbelievably, but this means Bigfoot has won it, and really it was a lucky win because he had a flat tire, which meant that Stomper 1 probably could have won this race. Let's go down to Army Armstrong.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mike Witt for the second time in his pro career has gone head over heel, high-sided the Stomper Chevrolet, and one of the most gruesome flips we've seen. Now, Mike, number one, you're okay.
I'm fine, Larry.
I tell you what, a tremendous race going. Of course, your old rival, Bigfoot, you represent the Chevrolet camp, him the Ford camp. Can you tell us exactly what happened?
I really don't know, Army. No idea.
Well, we're glad you're okay. We're going to let you get back to his crew, ladies and gentlemen. The final is set up. It'll be a Ford out of Texas and a Ford out of Missouri. However, we noticed when Bigfoot went by us a moment ago, his left rear tire had gone flat.
Well, I guarantee you, Bigfoot will be ready as he takes on Awesome Kong in the finals next from Louisville, Kentucky.
This is ESPN, the Total Sports Network.
Back in Louisville, Kentucky, and this is what the fans have been waiting for, Army. It is a championship round. Awesome Kong against who else but Bigfoot.
No love lost between these fellas. Steve Dane wants to put Rich Hoosier away. They come out side by side. Dane's working the inside. Hoosier's going to have to go way around. Dane drops down on that inside. Is working good for him, Richard. He looks like he might be able to hold him off as they get ready to go over the first jump.
Here comes Steve Dane and Awesome Kong. He's going to be the first up and over. But here comes Rich Hoosier and Bigfoot.
Hoosier gets a lot of air, but immediately the Ford sounds a little bit different.
And he has shut it down. Something wrong with Bigfoot. He is out of it. Rich Hoosier has shut Bigfoot down. That means your winner, the champion in Louisville tonight, is going to be Steve Dane and Awesome Kong.
Dane motors across the final jump to take a well-deserved win. This kid has been pumped up. He wanted to win it tonight, and it looks like he's going to do it.
Oh, you can tell how happy Steve Dane is, popping out from the cab, waving to the crowd. There he is, your champion tonight, Awesome Kong and Steve Dane over Bigfoot and Rich Hoosier. We just received word that Rich broke the throttle linkage. Let's go down with Army Armstrong now in the winner.
Steve Dane, congratulations on a well-deserved win.
Thank you, Army. This is a tough track. First time TNT put on a figure eight. Takes a little getting used to taking left-hand turn, right-hand turn. It's a high-speed track. I had more horsepower, I think, just about everybody here. Me and Stomper got the bigger motors. I knew I could get him once I got in the flat ground. He has a good working suspension, that Bigfoot, and I had to get ahead of him to make sure I wouldn't lose any time over the cars. He must have had some kind of problem because after that last turn, I didn't see him, and I just backed out of it a little bit.
When you get to the final, it's a knockdown, drag-out for that first place. Congratulations again.
Thank you.
So 3 major stories tonight. Steve Dane, the upset winner, and Awesome Kong. Bigfoot breaks in the finals, and Stomper has a tremendous flip. And that'll do it from Louisville, Kentucky. For Army Armstrong, I'm Richard Leake saying so long, everyone. With us tonight is Greg Cook in a Chevrolet, but from the Ford camp, keep your eye on Roger Crawford in the Bandit.
The Bandit Ford, one of the TRW pulling vehicles, is definitely going after the Chevrolets this evening.
Well, 190 foot